Hello, everyone. My name is Nicola DeFonso. I'm a historian of modern China and Taiwan. And today I want to talk about a growing phenomenon that I've seen on the internet that's left me equal parts worried and frustrated. So, when I first started developing an interest in China back in about 2013, there weren't too many videos on YouTube that talked about topics relating to Chinese history, society, culture, politics, etc., outside of maybe something like, say, Crash Course World History. You compare that to now when you type in the word China or Taiwan on the YouTube search bar, and there seems to be an endless list of videos showing up on your search feed, or even when you see recommended videos on your YouTube homepage, it's pretty hard to avoid seeing at least one video about China or Taiwan. I find that this increase in interest, though, is a bit of a double edged sword. In one sense, it's positive because people are becoming more familiar with these two very important places that increasingly have ramifications for those of us that live in the West. However, on the other hand, when people are coming across these videos about China or Taiwan, they're almost exclusively about national or international level politics and economics. And while it's not necessarily a bad thing to publish videos that deal exclusively with Chinese or Taiwanese international or national politics and economics, because these types of videos have overwhelmingly become the topic of discourse on major online platforms like YouTube, as a consequence, a lot of people in the general public, in my observation, seem to be defining these two places almost exclusively in political and economic terms. A lot of online forums that talk about China and Taiwan are flush with political and economic conversations and debate. And increasingly, when I tell people in conversation that I study modern Chinese and Taiwanese history, they almost always follow up by asking me some question related to the politics of those two places, such as cross-strait relations between China and Taiwan, China's military buildup, concentration camps, etc. And while it is the case that these topics are important and do need to be discussed, it's unfortunate that the range of conversation about China and Taiwan in general discourse seems to have become very shallow because it leaves these two countries seeming much more one dimensional than they actually are. One important reason why the range of discussion for China and Taiwan are so narrow in general public discourse is because Chinese and Taiwanese political phenomena make for good political news stories. And so they're often covered by news sources. I can't really level my frustration at news sources because it's a part of their job and it's inevitable that they're going to cover explicitly political news stories regarding these two places. But for me, it's worrying and frustrating that many educational content creators on YouTube who frequently upload videos related to China and Taiwan reinforce this focus on national and international level Chinese and Taiwanese politics and economics, rather than branch out to other diverse and underexplored aspects of these two countries. In this video, I'm going to focus on 4 educational YouTube channels on the platform, though my criticism is by no means limited to just them. These 4 channels are Johnny Harris, Real Life Lore, Wendover Productions, and Polymatter. I'm putting these channels in particular on the spotlight for 4 main reasons. First, these 4 channels have uploaded a number of videos related to China and Taiwan on their channel, with the overwhelming majority of them focusing on Chinese and Taiwanese national and international level politics and economics. Second, I watch the videos uploaded on these channels regularly, so I'm more familiar with their videos than videos on other channels who may also upload videos about China and Taiwan. And I should add that while I am criticizing these 4 channels, I do like these YouTube content creators, and I think that if you haven't already, you should support their channels because they do make great content, despite the fact that I'm critical of some of their decisions when they publish videos about China and Taiwan. The third reason is that each of these channels have over 1 million subscribers, and they accrue at least hundreds of thousands, if not millions of views per episode relating to China and Taiwan. And finally, as I'd mentioned before, unlike the countless political punditry channels on YouTube that talk about Chinese and Taiwanese politics, and economics. I would consider these four channels to be educational in nature as opposed to political. All of these reasons are to say that these channels have garnered a credibility online as producing thoughtful, researched content and have amassed a following far larger than any scholar of China or Taiwan that I know of. As a result, these four channels are in a uniquely powerful position to shape people's ideas of China and Taiwan in a way that most scholars of China and Taiwan can't do. Therefore, in my view, these channels have a responsibility as education channels to broaden people's view of China and Taiwan outside the realm of national and international politics and economics. To give everyone a sense of how often these channels publish videos on international and national level Chinese and Taiwanese politics and economics, let me provide a few statistics. Starting with the channel with the least number of videos on China and Taiwan, Johnny Harris has produced 10, all of which involve domestic or international politics in some form. Harris's disinterest in exploring China and Taiwan outside of a largely political, clinical perspective is particularly disappointing because when he was employed at Vox, he published a fantastic Borders series on Hong Kong, which examined both a state level and an on the ground perspective, analyzing Hong Kong in its political as well as its social context. Furthermore, his series on Cyprus, which was uploaded to his personal YouTube channel, was similarly nuanced, multi layered, and insightful, not just from a political perspective, but also social and cultural perspectives. Harris has demonstrated that he's a really talented journalist and documentarian. So it's disappointing to me that when he publishes videos on China and Taiwan, he narrows it down to simply political perspectives. Next on the list is Real Life Lore, which has a total of 13 videos on China and or Taiwan, the majority of which place the main focus on politics. Then after Real Life Lore is Wendover Productions, which has a total of 15 videos on China and or Taiwan, the vast majority again of which focus on political or economic issues at a national/international level. Finally, Polymatter has published 37 videos on China and or Taiwan, which again almost exclusively deal with national and international level political or economic matters pertaining to these two countries. Just from my own personal observation, when I watch Polymatter, I get the sense that the creator wants to position his channel as a major hub of China and Taiwan content with, at the time of recording this video, these kinds of uploads on his channel make up about 26% of his overall catalog. However, despite being a notable source of China and Taiwan content on YouTube, Polymatter hardly strays from talking about China and Taiwan in a explicitly national or international level political or economic context. As these numbers show, even these four channels haven't really given discussions of China and Taiwan, which have been laden with politicization by the news media, a much greater breadth of inquiry. And although their videos examine the national and international politics and economics of Taiwan and China in more depth or from a different angle than the way that they're covered in news media, these videos are still at their core largely politically centered in nature. Consequently, the hundreds of thousands, or in most cases millions of people that watch these videos, lose out on a diverse image of these two very complex places. Now, after having said all that, some people may argue that, yes, despite the fact that these channels are reinforcing a saturated political image of these two countries, they, as independent content creators, have no obligation to veer from their normal habits when uploading videos about China and Taiwan. In fact, there may be some who are quick to point out that there are scholars of China and Taiwan who, in their research, exclusively focus on national/international level politics and or economics. While that point may be true, as I mentioned before, these scholars don't really have that same reach as these four channels do in shaping the way that the general public understands China and Taiwan. Although at the end of the day, no one can force these content creators to diversify their catalog of China and Taiwan related content, it's important to keep in mind some of the implications of not expanding the topics and themes regarding China and Taiwan that they choose or choose not to cover on their channel. First, because these videos define China and Taiwan mainly in terms of national projects or political and economic maneuvers, focusing on higher up state level affairs. It runs the risk of dehumanizing these places by overlooking the millions and millions of ordinary people who live in these places. Second, it limits our understanding of the cultural and social phenomena such as religion, gender, ethnicity, literature, art, education, etc., that impact how people in China and Taiwan see themselves and make sense of the world around them, which often have direct implications for their national and international political and economic policies. Overall, I want to reiterate that these four channels have had a positive effect online by providing useful information about China and Taiwan to the general public. However, because they have a far greater capacity to spread information about China and Taiwan than scholars of these two countries, I hope they could do a better job of broadening people's understanding of these two complex and multi layered places. Also, as a side note, I just want to add that I think a lot of their videos on China and Taiwan lack actual Chinese and Taiwanese perspectives, often because after looking at their list of sources for these videos, they generally speaking don't use Chinese language sources. So I hope in the future that if they're able to, they could pool some of their financial resources to hire a translator that can help them integrate Chinese language sources into their research. That being said, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want a more expanded understanding of China and Taiwan outside of the political topics that are often covered online, I would recommend a few resources. First of all, JJ McCullough has published a video a little while back about Taiwan that covers more of the cultural and social aspects of their history. I'll link that video below. Also, Religion for Breakfast has published a number of videos about Chinese religion. I'll also link that below. And I'd recommend people go check out the China History podcast. You could find that anywhere you get your podcasts. Laszlo Montgomery is a great researcher, and I really enjoy listening to his videos. And finally, I'd also recommend listening to the Chinese Literature podcast with my good friend Lee Moore. Okay, that's it for now. New podcast episodes will be coming out soon. I'm really looking forward to sharing some great interviews that I've had with incredible scholars of all different parts of Asia. Those are going to be coming out soon. We'll see you next time.